The world I give in bliss, but do take heed, for wishes go amiss, and ruin proceeds.
Hello everybody! So I am back today to discuss more about my novel, Shores of Chaos, Darkness Follows. So this video is going to include spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the books, so turn away now if you don't want any spoilers, but I'm going to be discussing some of the elements that went into the story, primarily those elements that involve beings from Greek mythology. And one of these beings is the Siren. So in the novel, the character Alicia is revealed to be a siren herself. So I'm going to discuss a little bit of the history of sirens and her role in the novel. And the other thing I'm going to be discussing is chaos, which according to Greek mythology was a primordial being at the beginning of time. So nowadays we kind of conflate sirens and mermaids, but they were not always this way. In Greek mythology, the sirens were actually half-bird, half-woman creatures. They had the head of a woman and usually had the body of a bird, complete with feathers and wings. In some myths, they are the companions of the goddess Persephone, and after she was kidnapped by Hades, they asked for wings so that they could go look for her. But they were allowed to keep their faces so that they could keep singing. It wasn't actually until the medieval period that the sirens stopped having wings and started to have fish-like tails, making them seem more like mermaids. And we do see a lot of these depictions in medieval bestiaries. So this is why in the novel the character Alicia shows up as having feathers on her skin and not scales. However, in Darkness Follows, we do meet Alicia's sister Ligeia, who I kind of used to play with the idea of sirens being like mermaids by having her feathers hardened to scale-like appendages. So, I kind of went into that vein just a little bit, but I wanted to really keep it more in line with the actual mythology. Now, the sirens were very musically based creatures. They would sing and play instruments to lure in nearby mariners to their destruction. However, their song could be overcome using certain methods. Whether it would be placing wax in your ears like we see in the Odyssey, or having someone else play a song that would drown out theirs. Some Greek writers do explain how the sirens would destroy their victims. For example, Lycophron explains that they would charm these men so much that they would forget to eat and they would starve themselves. And I did play with this idea in my novel as well. So in the novels, we do see the sirens not only charming these men, but filling them with so much ecstasy that they're not even aware what's going on, while the sirens are simultaneously draining them of their life force, which leaves them looking like emaciated corpses. Now, the character of Alicia is my own creation. She doesn't actually appear in the Greek myths. And her name is a play on the word Elysium, which in Greek mythology is the resting place of the blessed and the heroic after they die. It was said to be like a paradise, so not only does that kind of fit in with Anthem Moessa, but also I kind of wanted her name to be at first a bit ironic and then foreshadowing for later on in the story. So when we first meet Alicia in the first novel, Shores of Chaos, Shipwrecked, she's very antagonistic towards Edward, so it made sense for her to kind of have like this ironic name, like you wouldn't expect her to be heroic. But the name is also simultaneously foreshadowing because she actually does end up helping this family and saving them on quite a few occasions. And while Alicia is not actually in Greek mythology, there are plenty of other named sirens, such as Molpe and Ligeia. A majority of the writers usually only have about 2 or 3 of these sirens existing at a single time, but I was like, well, why not just say they all existed? So I kind of just made it seem like Alicia had all these sisters. So while their parentage can vary from myth to myth, most writers do give their father as the god Achelous, who was a river god in Greek mythology, and forgive me if I'm saying these names wrong, but sometimes their mothers were listed as either Melpomene or Terpsichore. Both of these goddesses were muses, so Melpomene was the goddess of tragedy, and then Terpsichore was the muse of dance and chorus. So one of the ways I made Alicia a bit different in the story is by giving her a mother that was not either of these two muses. I actually made her mother Erato, who was the muse of erotic and love poetry. I did this because not only did I want her to be a bit different from her sisters, but I figured having a mother who was a muse of love might make Alicia a bit more sympathetic to humans as she is portrayed in the story, versus her sisters who are much more hateful towards humans like we see with Ligeia. In the actual myths, Erato herself was never said to be the mother of any of the sirens, at least not from what I've seen and researched. She only had one child named Cleophema, who was the daughter of her and her husband Malus. Now, the island where the sirens are said to have lived is named Anthomoessa in the Greek myths by the writer Hesiod. The name means flowery, and the island is described as being covered in clovers. And since this is where they lived, writers such as Homer said that you could see the bones and skins of the men that they had killed on their island. And in my novel, I did get a bit more creative with Anthomoessa. I made it a bit more flowery with waterfalls and things like that. And scholars today think that this island might have been the Sirens Islands, or another island off the coast of Italy near Capri. And the sirens themselves are also often associated with other places in Italy as well. And this is why I decided to have Alicia not only look Italian, but also when she does become human, present herself as the child of Italian immigrants to the other people she's around. The other beings that I have in my story are the Sentinels, who are the shadowy figures that haunt the shores of Wawanock Point and the Ashman family home, and it is revealed in Darkness Follows that they are actually the sentient parts of chaos. In the myths, chaos is described as this undeveloped mass of swirling darkness at the beginning of time. However, it did contain the seeds of things from which other beings could be made. And from chaos came Tartarus, the underworld, Gaia, the earth, and Eros, love. Darkness and night followed, and then from there came Ether, which is the divine air, as well as day. So I decided to take the more negative aspects of chaos and make them into the story's antagonists. For the Sentinels, their goal is essentially to destroy everything and return the universe back to its disordered state. And as far as where the Sentinels came from, I do reveal that they came from a portal back in the depths of the cave at Wawanock Point. It's essentially an opening to their realm, which is still this really dark, mysterious, disordered place that is really meant to be beyond our comprehension. And for me, the reason I chose that is because it's just so scary to think about, like we can't even imagine what this dark, disordered place would be like. So to have these beings haunting a family and wanting to destroy the world, that's pretty creepy in my book. I will link my blog post for this in the description below. I'll also link where you can buy my books at. I hope you have a great rest of your summer. It's sadly winding down. But have a great weekend. Hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.